Imagine discovering that you've been giving away your most valuable possession every single day without realizing it. That the thing you treasure most, your time, your focus, your very consciousness, has been systematically stolen from you piece by piece until you're left spiritually and mentally bankrupt. This isn't metaphor, this is reality. Your attention is a currency, and right now you're spending it faster than you're earning it. You're hemorrhaging focus, bleeding awareness, and trading your mental wealth for the digital equivalent of fool's gold. The result? A poverty of mind that leaves you anxious, scattered, and perpetually hungry for something you can't quite name. In this exploration, we're going to uncover the hidden economy of attention, how it works, who controls it, and why you've become an unwitting participant in your own mental bankruptcy. We'll discover how the most valuable resource of the 21st century isn't oil, gold, or data, it's your consciousness itself. And at the end of this journey, we'll reveal the one truth that could help you reclaim your wealth of mind before it's too late. But first, if this resonates with something you've been feeling, that sense of being mentally depleted despite consuming more information than ever before, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Share this with someone who might need to hear it, because what we're about to explore isn't just personal, it's civilizational.
Let's begin with an uncomfortable reality check. You are not the customer of most digital platforms. You are the product. Every scroll, every click, every moment your eyes linger on a screen generates revenue for someone else. Your attention has been commodified, packaged, and sold to the highest bidder. And just like any currency, when you spend it carelessly, you end up broke. The attention economy operates on a simple principle: capture consciousness, convert it to engagement, and monetize that engagement through advertising. But here's what they don't tell you. This system requires your attention to be fragmented, anxious, and constantly seeking stimulation. A calm, focused mind is worthless to the attention merchants. A scattered, reactive mind is pure gold. Consider this. The average person checks their phone 96 times per day. That's once every 10 minutes during waking hours. Each check fragments your attention, creating what researchers call switching costs, the mental energy required to refocus after an interruption. These micro-interruptions don't just steal moments, they steal depth, contemplation, and the very capacity for sustained thought. Neuroscientist Adam Gazzali's research reveals that every time you switch tasks, your brain requires up to 23 minutes to fully refocus. Think about that. If you're checking your phone once every 10 minutes, you never actually achieve deep focus. You exist in a permanent state of surface-level awareness, skimming across the shallow waters of consciousness, but never diving deep.
This isn't accidental. The platforms are designed to keep you in this state. They use what behavioral economist Nir Eyal calls variable reward schedules, the same psychological mechanism that makes gambling addictive. Sometimes you get a notification, sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's interesting, sometimes it's not. This unpredictability triggers dopamine release, creating a cycle of compulsive checking. But the real tragedy isn't just that you're distracted. It's that you're losing the capacity to be alone with your own thoughts. Psychologist Timothy Wilson conducted a famous study where participants were given the choice between sitting alone with their thoughts for 15 minutes or administering electric shocks to themselves. 2/3 chose the electric shocks. Think about what this means. We have become so uncomfortable with our own inner lives, so dependent on external stimulation, that we prefer physical pain to mental stillness. We've traded our natural state of contemplative awareness for our artificial state of perpetual distraction. The cost is profound. When your attention is scattered, your ability to form deep relationships suffers. Your capacity for creative thinking diminishes. Your emotional regulation becomes impaired. You lose touch with your authentic desires, your genuine interests, your true self. You become what the system needs you to be, a predictable consumer of content, advertising, and distraction.
To understand how we've become bankrupt, we need to look inside the brain itself. Your attention isn't just a metaphorical currency, it's a biological resource with real limitations and real costs. The prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for executive function, focus, and decision-making, operates like a muscle. It has finite strength and requires rest to recover. When you constantly switch between tasks, check notifications, and consume rapid-fire information, you're essentially doing high-intensity training with this mental muscle all day long, without rest. The result is what researchers call decision fatigue and attention residue. Your cognitive capacity becomes depleted, your willpower weakens, and fragments of previous tasks continue to occupy mental space even after you've moved on. You become mentally exhausted not from doing difficult work, but from managing the chaos of divided attention. But there's something even more disturbing happening at the neuroplastic level. Your brain is literally rewiring itself for distraction. Every time you respond to a notification, every time you seek novel stimulation, you strengthen neural pathways associated with seeking and weakening those associated with sustained focus. Dr. Larry Rosen's research on eye disorder shows that heavy technology use creates symptoms that mirror attention disorders, anxiety disorders, and even obsessive-compulsive behaviors. We're not just distracted, we're developing disordered patterns of thinking that mirror clinical conditions. The always-on connectivity creates what researchers call continuous partial attention, a state where you're constantly monitoring multiple streams of information but never fully engaging with any of them. It's like having dozens of browser tabs open in your mind, each one consuming processing power, slowing down the entire system. Meanwhile, the constant stimulation triggers your sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response. Your body interprets the barrage of notifications, updates, and stimuli as threats requiring immediate attention. Cortisol levels rise, heart rate increases, and you exist in a chronic state of low-level stress that your ancestors would have reserved for actual life-or-death situations. This physiological arousal becomes addictive. You begin to associate calm with boredom, stillness with emptiness. The natural rhythms of attention, the ebb and flow of focus and rest, are disrupted. You lose the ability to simply be present without stimulation. The tragedy is that deep attention, the kind that allows for creativity, insight, and genuine connection, requires the very thing our culture has made nearly impossible: sustained, undivided presence. When you're always partially elsewhere, you're never fully anywhere. Ancient contemplative traditions understood something our hyper-connected world has forgotten. Attention is not just how you focus on things. Attention is how you construct your reality. Where you place your awareness determines not just what you perceive, but who you become. The mystics called it paying attention for a reason. It's literally a payment, an investment of your most precious resource.
The bankruptcy of attention isn't just personal, it's destroying the very foundations of human flourishing. When we lose the capacity for sustained attention, we lose something far more valuable than productivity. We lose our humanity. Deep relationships require sustained presence. Love isn't a feeling, it's an attention practice. When you're with someone you care about, but part of your awareness is monitoring your phone, checking your messages, thinking about your next task, you're not actually with them. You're together but separate, connected but alone. Children learn to relate by watching how adults pay attention. When parents are constantly distracted, children internalize a model of fractured presence. They learn that they're not worthy of full attention, that connection is always partial, that presence is always divided. We're raising a generation that has never experienced undivided adult attention and doesn't know what they're missing.
Creativity requires what psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi calls flow states, periods of absorbed concentration where the sense of self disappears and peak performance emerges. But flow states are impossible in conditions of constant interruption. The creative mind needs space to wander, to make unexpected connections, to incubate ideas in the darkness of not knowing. The poet Rainer Maria Rilke wrote, "The future enters into us in order to transform itself in us long before it happens." But this transformation requires solitude, contemplation, the willingness to sit with uncertainty and let insight emerge. When your attention is constantly captured by external stimuli, you lose access to your inner life, the source of wisdom, creativity, and authentic action.
Even worse, the fragmentation of attention makes us vulnerable to manipulation. A scattered mind can't distinguish between signal and noise, between truth and propaganda, between authentic and artificial. When you're constantly in reactive mode, you lose the capacity for discernment that protects you from deception. Consider how political polarization has intensified in the age of social media. It's not just that we're exposed to different information, it's that the medium itself, short, emotionally charged bursts designed to trigger immediate reactions, undermines the slow, careful thinking necessary for democratic discourse. Complex issues get reduced to simplistic positions. Nuanced understanding becomes impossible when your attention span has been trained for tweet-length consumption. The spiritual cost may be the highest of all. Every wisdom tradition recognizes that the quality of your attention determines the quality of your experience. Buddhism calls it mindfulness. Christianity speaks of prayer without ceasing. Hinduism describes dharana, the ability to hold the mind one-pointed. These aren't religious concepts, they're technologies of consciousness, methods for accessing deeper levels of awareness and wisdom. But these states require training, discipline, the willingness to resist the gravitational pull of distraction. They require what we might call attention literacy, the ability to consciously direct your awareness rather than having it constantly hijacked by external forces. When you lose this capacity, you don't just become less productive or more anxious. You lose access to the contemplative intelligence that allows you to see clearly, think deeply, and act from wisdom rather than reactivity. You become a stranger to your own inner life, dependent on external validation and stimulation for a sense of meaning and purpose.
But here's the truth that no one wants to tell you. You can declare bankruptcy and start over. The attention economy only has power over you if you remain unconscious of how it operates. Once you see the system clearly, you can begin to opt out. The first step is recognizing that your attention is indeed a currency, finite, valuable, and worth protecting. Just as you wouldn't leave your wallet open on a busy street, you can't leave your consciousness unguarded in a landscape designed to capture it. This means becoming intentional about how you allocate your attention. It means treating focus as a scarce resource that deserves careful management. It means asking yourself, is this worth my consciousness? Does this deserve my presence? Will engaging with this make me more or less capable of the things I truly value? The practice begins with creating sacred spaces, physical and temporal boundaries where your attention is protected from external invasion. This might mean designated phone-free zones in your home, specific times when notifications are disabled, or daily periods of digital silence where you can reconnect with your inner life. But it goes deeper than digital detox. True attention training requires cultivating what we might call meta-attention, awareness of your awareness itself. This means noticing when your mind wanders, observing the quality of your focus, becoming conscious of the difference between reactive and responsive modes of consciousness. Ancient practices like meditation, contemplative prayer, and mindful movement are not religious artifacts, but cognitive technologies, methods for training the attention in the same way you might train your body. They teach you to observe your thoughts without being controlled by them, to rest in awareness itself rather than constantly seeking objects to focus on.
Reading long-form books becomes a revolutionary act. When you sit with a single text for extended periods, you rebuild your capacity for sustained attention. Your mind remembers what it feels like to go deep, to follow complex arguments, to sit with uncertainty until insight emerges. Solitude becomes essential medicine, not loneliness, the painful awareness of separation, but solitude, the enriching experience of being alone with your own consciousness without needing to fill it with external stimulation. In solitude, you rediscover the natural spaciousness of mind, the quiet intelligence that emerges when you stop feeding it distractions. Most importantly, you begin to recognize the difference between information and wisdom, between knowing and understanding, between being informed and being transformed. Information flows through you like water through a sieve. Wisdom develops slowly through sustained attention, reflection, and the integration of experience. The goal isn't to become a hermit or reject all technology. The goal is to become conscious, to use these tools rather than being used by them, to direct your attention rather than having it constantly hijacked, to live from intention rather than reaction. When you reclaim your attention, something extraordinary happens. You begin to experience what the mystics called presence, the ability to be fully here, fully now, without the constant mental noise that fragments experience. Relationships deepen because you can offer the gift of undivided attention. Creativity flows because your mind has space to make unexpected connections. Inner peace becomes possible because you're no longer at war with your own consciousness.
We stand at a threshold. Never before in human history has consciousness itself been so systematically captured, commodified, and controlled. Never before have we had such powerful technologies of distraction. But never before have we also had such a clear understanding of how attention works and how to train it. The choice is yours. You can continue to live as a victim of the attention economy, spending your consciousness carelessly, trading depth for stimulation, wisdom for information. You can remain bankrupt, always seeking but never finding, always consuming but never satisfied. Or you can recognize that your attention is your most precious possession, more valuable than money, more important than status, more essential than any external achievement. You can begin the slow, patient work of rebuilding your wealth of mind. This isn't easy. The forces arrayed against sustained attention are massive, sophisticated, and designed by some of the brightest minds of our generation. But remember, every moment of genuine presence is an act of rebellion. Every instance of choosing depth over distraction pushes back against a system that profits from your fragmentation. The revolution won't be televised because it's happening in the invisible realm of consciousness itself. It's happening every time someone chooses to put down their phone and have a real conversation. Every time someone sits in silence instead of immediately reaching for stimulation. Every time someone reads a book instead of scrolling through feeds. You are not powerless. Your attention is not predetermined. Your consciousness is not the inevitable victim of technological forces beyond your control. You have agency. You have choice. You have the capacity to wake up from the trance of perpetual distraction and remember what it means to be fully present, fully alive, fully human.
The question is not whether you can reclaim your attention. The question is whether you will choose to do so, whether you will take responsibility for the quality of your consciousness, whether you will begin the sacred work of becoming present to your own life. Your mind is not a commodity to be sold to the highest bidder. Your consciousness is not content to be consumed by others. Your attention is a sacred gift to yourself, to those you love, to the world that needs your unique presence and perspective. The time to begin is now, not tomorrow,
Not next week, not when you have more time or less stress or better circumstances. Now, in this moment, with this breath, by simply choosing to be here, fully here, without needing to be anywhere else. This is how you reclaim your wealth. This is how you declare independence from the attention economy. This is how you remember what it means to be free. The revolution begins with a single moment of presence. Let it begin with you. If this exploration revealed something you needed to hear, something you've been feeling but couldn't quite articulate, consider sharing it with someone who might need this reminder. Leave a comment about your own relationship with attention, your struggles with distraction, your experiences with presence. Because the conversation about consciousness doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in community, among those brave enough to question the systems that shape our inner lives. Stay present, stay conscious, and remember, your attention is your choice.